Good morning to you all, and welcome to today's teaching. There is a pattern that many have lived, but few have truly seen. A pattern of knowing something isn't right, yet staying. A pattern of feeling drained, yet trying harder. A pattern of losing yourself slowly without even realizing it. This is not just the story of a man named Samson. This is the story of what happens when strength is not lost in a moment, but worn down over time. When your boundaries are tested, your emotions are pulled, your mind is persuaded, and your soul becomes tired. Until one day, you wake up and you don't realize who you have become. But here is the truth. Scripture was never meant to trap you in fear or bind you in guilt. It's written in symbols to reveal something deeper. Because the kingdom of God is within you, and every story is a mirror. So today, we are not reading history. We are uncovering a pattern in relationships, in careers, in belief systems, and most importantly, within ourselves. Let us begin. Judges 16 verse 1. Then went Samson to Gaza, and there saw a harlot, and went in unto her. Samson represents strength, power, the divine potential within you. Gaza represents a boundary place, edge of awareness, a vulnerable territory. Saw is perception, attention, what you focus on. Harlot represents misaligned desire, corrupted attachment, something that pulls you away from truth. Went in unto her is union, agreement, becoming one with that desire. This is the moment where your strength becomes connected to something that does not align with truth. The deep insight. Samson is not weak here. He is powerful. But power without discernment becomes vulnerable. Went to Gaza. Gaza represents a place of exposure, a place where boundaries are thinner, a place where temptation is more accessible. This is when you move into environments or states where your guard is lowered and your awareness is not fully anchored. Saw a harlot. This is key. It's saying nothing happens until you see and give attention. A thought appears, a desire arises, a distraction presents itself, and you focus on it. The key truth: what you consistently look at, you begin to move toward. Harlot. A harlot represents something that offers pleasure without alignment. Something that pulls you away from your higher awareness. Something that trades depth for temporary satisfaction. It is not just physical. It can be emotional dependency, ego validation, comfort over truth, or short-term gain over long-term alignment. Went in onto her. This is the turning point. You don't just see it. You join with it. You engage. You agree. You become connected. This is alignment with misalignment. Why this matters? Samson's power is still present, but now it is connected to the wrong thing. And this is how strength begins to weaken. Verse 1 first says, harlot. Then it personifies to Delilah. A harlot represents temporary pleasure, surface level attraction, something you know is not aligned. At this stage, it's external, it's casual, it's not yet part of you. You visit it, but you are not yet bound to it. Then comes Delilah. First it said harlot. Now it personifies it, Delilah. Name equals identity, nature, or character. This is no longer casual. This is something that becomes part of you. Something you engage repeatedly. Something you build connection with. Something you open yourself emotionally to. Now, it's not something you visit. It's something you are connected to. At first, you interact with something. Then you accept it. You normalize it. You internalize it. And eventually, it becomes part of your identity. The deep truth: what you repeatedly accept, you eventually become aligned with. And what you align with begins to influence your decisions, your emotions, and your perception. Career example, what you see. You come across a job that offers high salary, great benefits, financial freedom, independence, and lifestyle upgrades. On the surface, it looks like success, progress, and a breakthrough. Next, saw a harlot. Just like the verse, you see something attractive, but the attraction is based on what it gives you externally, not what it aligns with internally. The hidden misalignment. Deep down, you notice it requires you to compromise integrity. It pushes you into unethical decisions. It conflicts with your values. It drains your sense of purpose. But because of the benefits, you overlook it. Went in onto her. This is the turning point. You don't just consider it. You accept the offer. You sign the contract. You commit your time. You invest your energy. Now, your strength is tied to something that doesn't align with who you are. What happens next? At first, you enjoy the money. You enjoy the lifestyle. You feel accomplished. But over time, you begin to feel drained, disconnected, and internally conflicted because your outer life is no longer matching your inner truth. The key truth: not everything that looks like an opportunity is aligned with your purpose. And when you connect your energy to it, you begin to lose alignment internally. Relationship example, what you see. You meet someone who has strong physical attraction, the exact qualities you like externally. The person has charm, presence, and chemistry. On the surface, it feels like this is what I've been looking for. You feel excitement. There is connection. Saw a harlot. Just like the verse, you see something desirable, but the attraction is rooted in appearance, chemistry, and immediate emotional pull, not necessarily alignment of values. The hidden misalignment. As you engage, you begin to notice different values, lack of integrity or consistency, misalignment in communication or priorities, emotional instability or incompatibility. But because of the attraction, you overlook it. Went in onto her. This is the turning point. You don't just notice them, you connect with them. You spend time. You invest emotionally. You open up. You bond. Now, your energy is tied to someone who doesn't align with your truth. What happens next? At first, it feels exciting. It feels fulfilling. The chemistry is strong. But over time, you begin to feel confused, drained, emotionally unsettled, and internally conflicted. Because attraction cannot sustain what alignment does not support. The key truth: not everything that feels like connection is alignment. And when you ignore that difference, you bind yourself to misalignment. Religion example, what you see. You come across a teaching, a preacher, or a belief system. It offers comfort, certainty, community, clear answers, and emotional reassurance. On the surface, it feels like truth, safety, and this must be right. Saw a harlot, just like the verse. You see something attractive spiritually, but the attraction is based on how it makes you feel, how easy it is to accept, and how much it removes uncertainty, not necessarily whether it is deeply true. The hidden misalignment. Over time, you begin to notice it discourages questioning. It promotes fear or control. It creates dependency instead of growth. It contradicts what you are seeing within. But because it feels good, you overlook it. Went in onto her. This is the turning point. You don't just hear it, you adopt it. You repeat it. You defend it. You identify with it. You build your understanding around it. Now, your awareness is tied to something that may not be aligned with truth. What happens next? At first, you feel confident. You feel secure. You feel like you know. But over time, you begin to feel restricted, conflicted, unable to explore freely, and disconnected from deeper understanding. Because belief has replaced direct awareness. The key truth: not everything that feels spiritual is aligned with truth. And when you attach to it without discernment, you limit your own understanding. Verse 2. And it was told the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in, and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, in the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. And it was told, what was hidden is now revealed. Your actions are no longer private. The connection you made is now visible. This is when misalignment begins to show itself in your life. The Gazites. Gaza equals vulnerable territory. Gazites represent forces within that operating in the system. These represent external pressures, internal patterns, and consequences tied to that environment. The moment you enter misalignment, you enter a system that responds to it. Samson is come hither. Awareness recognizes you are here now, meaning you are now fully inside that situation. You are no longer observing, no longer considering. You are involved. They compassed him in. That surrendered. Once you connect to misalignment, it begins to close in on you. It begins to influence multiple areas. You feel trapped, pressured, and limited. Laid wait for him all night. Night represents lack of clarity or unawareness. This means the consequence is not immediate. It develops quietly over time. It's subtle and noticed at first, but building in the background. In the gate of the city, gate represents point of entry and decision. The trap is positioned at where decisions are made, meaning your choices become affected. Your judgment becomes influenced. Misalignment begins to control your direction. We're quiet all the night. This is dangerous. There is no immediate chaos. Everything feels calm, normal, and under control. But underneath, something is forming. In the morning, we shall kill him. Morning equals clarity. Kill him means to destroy your strength, clarity, and alignment. The key truth: misalignment does not destroy you immediately. It surrounds you first, then waits until the moment of clarity to reveal its full effect. Career example: what happens? You take the job that doesn't align. At first, everything feels fine. You enjoy the benefits. Over time, pressure increases. Integrity is challenged. Your decisions are affected, and you begin to feel surrendered. Relationship example. What happens? You enter a relationship based on attraction. At first, it feels exciting. It feels normal. Over time, boundaries weaken. Emotional pressure builds. You feel trapped. You realize you are no longer fully yourself. Religion example, what happens? You adopt a belief system without deep alignment. At first, it feels safe. It feels clear. Over time, you stop questioning. You feel restricted. Your thinking becomes limited. Your awareness becomes surrounded. What surrounds you does not always attack immediately. Sometimes it waits until you are fully inside before it reveals what it was building all along. The danger is not always what attacks you immediately. It is what surrounds you quietly until one day you realize you are no longer free. Verse 3. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the two posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of a hill that is before Hebron. Samson lay till midnight. He stayed there for a time. He remained in the situation. He was still within misalignment. This is realistic. You don't always leave immediately. You stay. You experience it. You sit in it. But something is building internally. Arose at midnight. Midnight represents peak darkness. This is powerful. Awareness rises at the darkest moment. When confusion is highest. When pressure is strongest. When clarity is most needed. That's when you wake up. Took the doors of the gate of the city. Gate represents point of entry or exit. Doors equal access or control. This means he takes control of what once controlled access to him. And the two posts. Post equals support structure. This represents the foundation holding the trap in place. He doesn't just leave. He removes the system itself. Bar and all. The bar equals what locks it. This is critical. He removes the restriction completely. Nothing is left behind. Put them on his shoulders. Shoulders represent responsibility or strength. He doesn't escape passively. He uses his strength to carry what once held him. carried them to the top of a hill. Hill represents elevation or higher awareness. This is transformation. What once trapped you now becomes something you rise above. Before Hebron, Hebron equals union or alignment, meaning he moves toward true alignment. The deep insight. This is powerful. Samson entered misalignment, verse 1. He was surrounded, verse 2. But now he breaks out. The key truth. Even when you enter misalignment, your strength is not gone. It is still within you, waiting to be activated. Career example. What happens? You stayed in a job that didn't align. The midnight moment. This is where you feel drained. You feel stuck. You realize this is not it. Then you rise, meaning you quit. You redirect. You take control. Not just leaving, but reclaiming your power. Relationship example. What happens? You stayed in misalignment. The midnight moment. Emotional exhaustion. Clarity hits. You say, I can't continue like this. Then you rise. You detach. You set boundaries. You walk away. You remove what held you. Religion example. What happens? You followed a limiting belief system. The midnight moment. You feel restricted. You start questioning. Then you rise, meaning you think for yourself. You release what doesn't align. You reclaim your awareness. You take back control of your mind. Verse 4. And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And it came to pass afterward. After the breakthrough, this is important. Samson already escaped once. He already showed strength. He already broke free. Yet, another test comes. Breaking free once does not mean the pattern is gone. He loved a woman. This is deeper than verse 1. Not just attraction, emotional attachment. Love here represents deep connection, emotional investment, vulnerability. This is no longer surface level. This is internal bonding. The valley of Sorek. Valley equals low place or descent. This represents a subtle lowering of awareness. Not obvious like before, but gradual. Whose name was Delilah? Delilah symbolizes something that slowly drains strength. Not aggressively, not suddenly, but gradually. Through repetition, emotional influence, and subtle pressure. The deep insight. This is different from verse 1. Verse 1, we see attraction. Verse 4, now attachment. This is more dangerous because now your heart is involved. The key truth: the greatest loss of strength does not come from what you casually engage with. It comes from what you become emotionally attached to. Real life pattern. What happens? Someone enters a situation they already know is not right. Something like romance scams, money laundering, bribery, and fraud. At the beginning, it may not even feel deep, but then something happens. Attachment forms. Why it becomes hard to leave? It's not just the action anymore. It's what comes with it. Money, comfort, lifestyle, ease, and validation. And now the mind starts saying, just a little longer. I'll stop later. At least I'm benefiting. The inner conflict. Deep down, you know it's wrong. But at the same time, you enjoy what it gives you. That creates internal division. Truth pulling one way, attachment pulling the other. He loved Delilah. This is the exact pattern. It's no longer about not knowing. It's about choosing to stay because of the benefit. What makes it dangerous? At this stage, it's not force keeping you there. It's what you have become used to. The lifestyle, the comfort, and the reward. That's what makes living difficult. Important truth. This is not harmless. These choices harm others, create legal consequences, and build patterns that eventually collapse. Just like Samson, what feels beneficial now eventually leads to loss of strength. Relationship example. What happens? You are in a relationship where deep down you see the misalignment. You recognize the red flags. You know it's not truly healthy. But at the same time, there are benefits. Emotional comfort, physical intimacy, financial support, companionship, and familiarity. The inner dialogue. You start telling yourself, at least I'm not alone. Nobody is perfect. I've already invested so much. What if I don't find better? Now it's no longer about truth. It's about what you are receiving. The conflict. You know it's not aligned, but you enjoy what it provides, so you stay. This is emotional attachment overriding discernment. Why it's hard to leave? It's not just the person. It's the feeling, the routine, the familiarity, and the fear of starting over. That's what keeps you there. Not every relationship you feel attached to is aligned with who you are becoming. Religion example, what happens? You follow a belief system where you are discouraged from questioning. You sense inconsistencies. You feel limited in understanding. But at the same time, it gives you structure, certainty, identity, community, and emotional reassurance. The inner dialogue. You start telling yourself, this is how I was raised. I don't want to go against what I've known. What if I'm wrong to question this? It's safer to stay here. Now, it's no longer about truth. It's about comfort and familiarity. The conflict. You feel the limitation, but you enjoy the safety it gives you. So you stay. This is comfort overriding deeper awareness. Why it's hard to live? It's not just belief. It's community, identity, fear of isolation, and the fear of being wrong. That's what holds you. Not everything that gives you comfort leads you to truth. The hardest things to walk away from are not the ones that hurt you immediately. They are the ones that give you something, while quietly taking something deeper from you. The most dangerous attachments are not built on pain. They are built on comfort that slowly convinces you to stay where you no longer belong. Verse 5. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him. And we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. The lords of the Philistines came up unto her. Higher level forces now get involved. These represent deep-rooted patterns, strong influences, systems that oppose your alignment. This is no longer casual. It is intentional pressure. And said unto her, entice him. Entice equals seduce, draw in, persuade subtly, not force, not attack, but attraction. This is how misalignment works at this level. It doesn't push you away from truth. It pulls you gently towards something else. See wherein his great strength lieth. The goal is to identify the source of your strength, to identify your discipline, your clarity, your values, and your awareness. What makes you stable and aligned? By what means we may prevail against him. Now the intention is clear. Not just to distract you, but to overcome your strength. This is targeted. It studies your habits, your weaknesses, your patterns, and finds where you can be influenced. We will give thee 1,100 pieces of silver. Silver equals reward, gain, or benefit. This is the exchange, compromise for reward. Meaning, if you give in, if you reveal your strength, if you lower your guard, you get something in return. This is the temptation. The deep insight. At this stage, misalignment is no longer random. It becomes strategic. It begins to steady you, understand you, and target you through what you are attached to. The key truth. The strongest attacks on your alignment don't come randomly. They come through what you are emotionally connected to. Relationship example. What happens? You reach a point where you've seen the misalignment. You felt the exhaustion. You decide, I'm done. Then something shifts. They've already learned what you care about, what softens you, what makes you stay, what you are afraid to lose, and now they use it. Entice him. Instead of letting you go, they begin to cry, apologize, promise change, say I'll do better, say it won't happen again, and it feels real. We will give thee silver. This is where they add gifts, dates, attention, and affection. Suddenly, you are receiving everything you wished for before. The external pressure. Sometimes it goes further. Friends call you. Family pleads with you. Others say, give them another chance. Now, it's not just them. It's reinforced from outside. The inner conflict. You now feel hope, guilt, doubt, and emotional pull. And you start thinking, maybe they've changed. Maybe I should try again. What if I'm being too harsh? What's really happening? This is not random emotion. This is targeted influence based on what they know about you. Your compassion, your patience, and your desire for things to work. That becomes the entry point. Important truth. Sometimes it's not that they've changed. It's that they've learned how to keep you. Career example. What happens? You reach a point where you see the misalignment. You feel the pressure on your integrity. You decide, I need to leave this. Then something shifts. The workplace already knows you value financial stability. They know you like recognition. They know you respond to growth opportunities. They know you don't want to start over. And now they use it. Entice him. Instead of letting you go, they suddenly offer a promotion. increase your salary, give you recognition, promise better conditions. Things that were missing before now appear. We will give thee silver. They reinforce it with bonuses, perks, flexibility, and titles. Now you start thinking, maybe it's not so bad. Things are improving. Let me stay a little longer. The inner conflict. You feel relief, doubt, and temptation, even though you know the core issue hasn't changed. What's really happening? This is not growth. It is retention strategy. They've learned what makes you stay. The important truth. Sometimes it's not that the environment improved. It's that it responded to keep you where you are. Religion example, what happens? You begin to question, think deeper, see inconsistencies. You feel like I need to explore more. Then something shifts. The system already knows you value belonging. You fear being wrong. You don't want to lose community. You want certainty, and now it uses it. Entice him. Instead of allowing you to explore, it reinforces. Stay and you are safe. Questioning leads to danger. Outside is confusion. You will lose everything if you leave. We will give thee silver. It offers acceptance, identity, community, and emotional security. Now you start thinking, maybe I shouldn't question too much. What if I'm wrong? It's safer to stay here. The inner conflict. You feel curiosity, fear, and guilt, even though you sense there's more to understand. What's really happening? This is not protection. This is control through comfort. It knows what keeps you from leaving. The important truth. Sometimes it's not that something is true. It's that it has learned how to keep you from questioning it. The moment you try to leave is often the moment everything you wanted before suddenly appears. Not because it changed, but because it doesn't want to lose you. Not everything that improves suddenly is transformation. Sometimes it is simply a response to keep you connected to what you were about to outgrow. Verse 6. And Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. Delilah said to Samson, the influence now speaks directly to your strength. This is no longer external pressure only or general temptation. This is targeted communication. Thoughts, emotions, and conversations aimed at you specifically. Tell me wherein thy great strength lieth. It is asking, reveal what makes you strong. Reveal your discipline, your boundaries, your values, and your awareness. The goal is to understand how to weaken you. And wherewith thou mightest be bound. Bound equals restricted, controlled, or limited. This is the intention. How can you be held in place? What can keep you from living? What can keep you from growing? What can keep you from acting in truth? Next line, to afflict thee. Afflict equals weaken or drain or oppress. Not destroy immediately, but gradually reduce your strength mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. What's really happening? At this stage, the system is no longer guessing. It is now interacting with you directly through conversations, through thoughts, through emotional triggers, trying to get you to expose your vulnerability. The key truth, the most dangerous moment is when you begin to reveal your strength to what is trying to weaken you. Relatable example, the dating world. What happens? You are on a date, and the question comes, what are you looking for? You answer honestly, I want someone caring, someone honest, someone loving, someone God-fearing, and someone respectful. You are expressing your values. What can happen next? The other person now knows exactly what matters to you. So they may present themselves that way. Say the right things and act the part temporarily. Not because they truly are, but because they know what will appeal to you. Important clarification here. Let's keep this grounded. Not everyone is trying to deceive, but some people mirror what you say to be liked or to gain connection quickly. The real pattern. The issue is not that you shared your values. The issue is believing words without observing consistency. Anyone can say, I'm honest, I'm loyal, I'm caring. But truth is revealed through actions over time, consistency, and behavior under pressure. The key truth. Words show intention, but behavior reveals reality. How this connects to the verse? The verse says, tell me where your strength lies. In modern terms, tell me what matters to you. And if someone is misaligned, they may reflect it back to you without truly embodying it. The healthy perspective. You don't need to stop sharing. You don't need to become guarded or closed. Instead, you stay aware. Share your values, but observe their actions. Let time reveal truth. The shift. Instead of asking, did they say the right things? Ask, do their actions consistently reflect what they say? It's not wrong to express what you value, but wisdom is not in withholding your truth. It is in watching how others live theirs. Anyone can learn what to say. Very few will consistently live what they claim to be. Verse 7. And Samson said unto her, if they bind me with 7 green wheats that were never dried, then shall I be weak and be as another man. Samson said unto her, he responds. This is key. He is engaging in the conversation. Even though the intention is not aligned, even though the probing is clear, he still participates. If they bind me, he entertains the idea of being bound. This shows subtle compromise. He is not leaving. He is not shutting it down. He is playing along. 7 green wheats that were never dried. The number 7 represents completeness. Green, fresh, represents undeveloped or immature. Never dried means untested or not refined. This represents surface level or immature solutions. These are things that appear significant but are not truly strong. Then shall I be weak. He gives a condition, but it's not the truth. This is deflection, not revealing his real source of strength, but still engaging in the game. Be as another man. This represents losing uniqueness or losing identity. He is describing a loss of his true nature. But again, it is not the real answer. A deep insight. At this stage, Samson knows something is off. But instead of leaving, setting boundaries, and disconnecting, he chooses to play along. The key truth. This is where many people get stuck. Not fully committed to misalignment, but not fully walking away either. Living in between. Career example. What happens? You know the job isn't aligned. But instead of leaving, you say, I'll stay for now. You set temporary boundaries. You try to manage it. You are not fully out. You are managing misalignment. Relationship example. You sense something is off. But instead of leaving, you go back and forth. You test them. You give partial responses. You want to see how it goes. You are not fully committed, but you are still engaged. Religion example. You begin to question, but instead of fully exploring, you suppress some questions. You accept partial answers. You stay in between. You are not fully aligned, but you haven't stepped out. There is a stage where you know something isn't right. But instead of leaving, You entertain it just enough to stay connected. The danger is not always telling the full truth. Sometimes it is staying in a situation where you feel the need to hide it. Verse 8. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 grains wheat which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. The lords of the Philistines brought. The system responds. This is key. What you say will be tested. Your words are not ignored. Your response is acted upon. Misalignment now moves from conversation to action. 7 green wheat. This is same as before. 7 represents completeness. Green represents immature. Not dried means untested. This represents weak surface level restraints. Things that look strong but are not truly effective. She bound him with them. Bound equals restricted or held back. Even though the solution is false, it is still applied. This is powerful. You can still feel restricted, even by something that isn't truly strong. The deep insight. Samson gave a false answer, but the system still used it. Why? Because he stayed engaged. The key truth: even false solutions can still create temporary restriction if you remain in the situation. Career example. What happens? You know the job isn't aligned. Instead of leaving, you negotiate small changes. You adjust your schedule. You try to make it work. These are green weights. They look like solutions, but they don't address the root. The result: you are still in the same system. The core issue remains. You still feel restricted. Relationship example. What happens? You confront misalignment. Instead of real change, they say the right things. They make small adjustments. They behave differently for a short time. These are temporary restraints. It looks like improvement, but it's not transformation. The result: you are still connected. The deeper issue is still there. You are still affected. Religion example. What happens? You begin to question. Instead of full exploration, you accept partial explanations. You get surface level answers. You stay within the system. These are green weights. They give the illusion of clarity, but not true understanding. The result: you feel temporarily satisfied, but deeper questions remain. Your awareness is still limited. Not everything that looks like a solution is meant to free you. Some things only exist to keep you in place a little longer. The most subtle trap is not being bound strongly. It is being held by something that feels manageable while quietly keeping you where you are. Verse 9. Now there were men lying in wait, abiding with her in the chamber. And she said unto them, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson, and he brake the wheat as a thread of tow is broken when it toucheth the fire. So his strength was not known. Men lying in wait in the chamber. Hidden forces are present. Chamber represents private inner space. These are subtle thoughts, internal pressures, and unseen influences. Even when everything looks calm, something is still waiting. The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. This is a trigger. It represents a moment of pressure, a test, a confrontation, a situation that demands response. This is when what's holding you is revealed. He break the weights. The restraints break instantly. This shows they were never truly strong. The moment pressure came, they could not hold. As a thread when it touched the fire. Fire represents truth, awareness, or intensity. Thread equals weak structure. Meaning, when truth is applied, weak restraints cannot survive. His strength was not known. The real source of his strength is still hidden. Even though he broke free, he has not fully protected himself, not fully removed himself, not fully disengaged. The pattern is still active. The deep insight. Samson breaks free, but he is still there. This is the danger. The key truth. Breaking free temporarily is not the same as leaving the situation. Career example. What happens? You face pressure at work. You respond. You push back. You stand your ground. You prove you are strong. You realize this can't control me. But then you stay. Even though the system is still the same. Even though the environment hasn't changed. You've proven strength, but not created change. Relationship example. What happens? You are tested. There's conflict, manipulation, and pressure. You respond. You stand firm. You don't give in. You see clearly. You realize, I'm not controlled by this. But then you remain in the relationship. The dynamic is still there. The cycle continues. Religion example. You question beliefs. You realize some things don't align. Some answers are incomplete. You break through mentally. But then you stay within the same structure. The limitation is still present. Sometimes you prove to yourself that something cannot hold you and still choose to stay where it tried. The moment you realize something cannot truly hold you is the moment you must decide whether to remain or to be free. Verse 10. And Delilah said unto Samson, Behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. Behold, thou hast mocked me. The tone changes. It moves from curiosity to accusation. This represents guilt pressure. Emotional reversal, making you feel like the problem. Instead of why are you protecting yourself, it becomes, why are you doing this to me? Next, and told me lies. Now your protection is labeled as wrong. This is powerful. You begin to feel guilty, defensive, and responsible, even though you were guarding your truth. Now tell me, the pressure continues. It does not stop after resistance. It becomes persistent, repeated questioning, repeated attempts, and continuous engagement. Wherewith thou mightest be bound. The intention has not changed. It is still, how can you be controlled? The difference now is it is wrapped in emotion. The deep insight. At this stage, the strategy shifts from attraction and curiosity to emotional pressure, guilt, blame, repetition to wear down resistance. The key truth: when direct methods don't work, misalignment often turns to emotional influence. Relationship example. What happens? You've reached a point where you see the misalignment. You feel the exhaustion. You decide, I need to walk away. Then the narrative changes. Instead of addressing the issue, they begin to say things like, I was there for you when no one else was. You've hurt me before. I forgave you. You are not perfect either. You are being ungrateful. Notice what's happening. The focus shifts from the present issue to the past and your perceived faults. What this creates internally, you begin to feel guilt, doubt, obligation, and emotional pressure. And your mind starts saying, maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I owe them. Maybe I should try again. What's really happening? This is not resolution. It is emotional leverage. Past actions are used as currency. Your mistakes are brought forward. Gratitude is used as obligation to make you rethink your decision. Connection to the verse. Delilah said, you have mocked me. You told me lies. In modern terms, you are wrong. You are hurting me. You are the problem. Your boundary becomes the issue. Important truth. Acknowledging the past is healthy, but using it to dismiss the present, to silence your decision, and to keep you in misalignment is not growth. Career example, what happens? You've reached a point where you see the misalignment. You feel the pressure on your integrity. You decide, I need to leave this role. Then the narrative shifts. Instead of addressing the issue, they begin to say things like, we gave you this opportunity when no one else did. We've invested so much in you. We've been good to you. You are not showing loyalty. Notice what's happening. The focus shifts from the misalignment to your sense of obligation. What this creates internally, you begin to feel guilt, pressure, responsibility, and doubt. And your mind starts saying, maybe I'm being ungrateful. Maybe I owe them. Maybe I should stay longer. What's really happening? This is not growth. It is guilt-based retention. Past support is used as leverage. Opportunity is used as control. Loyalty is used as pressure to make you stay where you no longer align. The important truth, appreciation is valid, but it should not replace alignment, override integrity, or keep you in what you've outgrown. Religion example, what happens? You begin to question, see inconsistencies, feel there's more to understand. You feel like I need to explore deeper. Then the response comes. Instead of engaging your questions, you hear things like, after everything you've been taught, you are turning your back on truth. You are being deceived. Don't forget where you came from. Notice what's happening. The focus shifts from understanding to fear and guilt. What this creates internally, you begin to feel fear, guilt, doubt, and inner conflict. And your mind starts saying, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm going too far? Maybe I should stop questioning. What's really happening? This is not guidance. It is control through fear and identity. Your past is used to anchor you. Your identity is used to hold you. Fear is used to limit exploration, to make you stay where it feels safe. Important truth. Respecting where you came from does not mean you cannot grow beyond it. Sometimes, the past is not brought up to honor it, but to hold you in a place you've already outgrown. Not everything that reminds you of the past is meant to guide you forward. Sometimes, it is used to make you feel like you don't have the right to move on. Verse 11, and he said unto her, if they bind me fast with new ropes that never were occupied, then shall I be weak and be as another man. He said unto her, he responds again. This cycle is continuing. He already knows the intention. He already experienced the test, yet he is engaging. If they bind me fast, now it becomes stronger language. Bind me fast equals tighter restriction. This shows this scenario is intensifying. With new ropes, new equals different approach. Ropes equals stronger restraint than before. This represents a more convincing or more structured solution compared to green weeds, which are weak and surface level. This is a step deeper. That never were occupied, meaning never used or untested. This is key. It still lacks real strength. It just appears stronger. Then shall I be weak? Again, a condition is given, but still not the truth. This is continued. Deflection plus engagement. Be as another man. Same as before. Loss of identity or loss of uniqueness. But again, it's not real. What's really happening? The pattern is repeating, but evolving. This is important. Misalignment doesn't always stay the same. It adapts. The key truth. When you don't fully step away, the same pattern returns in a slightly different form. Career example. What happens? You already resisted once. Then something new is offered. New role, new title, new responsibilities. It looks like change, but in reality, the culture is the same. The pressure is the same. The misalignment is still there. It's just a new version of the same situation. Relationship example. You've been through the cycle before. Then they return with new promises, new behavior, new approach. It feels like this time is different. But in reality, the core issue hasn't changed. The pattern is still there. It's just a new version of the same dynamic. Religion example, what happens? You question something deeply. Then you receive a new explanation, a more sophisticated answer, a different interpretation. It feels like clarity. But in reality, the core limitation remains. The deeper question is still not addressed. It's just a refined version of the same boundary. Not every new thing is truly new. Sometimes it is the same pattern wearing a different form. The cycle doesn't always repeat in the same way. It repeats in a way that feels just different enough for you to consider it again. Verse 12. Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him therewith, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And there were layers in wait abiding in the chamber, and he brake them from off his arms like a thread. Delilah therefore took new ropes. The strategy is applied. This shows persistence, adaptation, and escalation. What didn't work before is replaced with something that appears stronger. Next, and bound him therewith. Again, restriction is applied. Even though the method is different, even though the intention is the same, which is to limit your strength. The Philistines be upon thee. The same trigger is used. Pressure is introduced again. This represents repeated testing. Same situation. Same type of pressure. Different form. Liars in wait abiding in the chamber. Still present. Nothing has changed. The environment, the hidden pressure, The intention still the same, only the method changed. He break them like a thread. Same result. The ropes break instantly. This shows they were never truly strong. Even though they appeared stronger, they seemed more convincing. They still had no real power. The deep insight. This is repetition. New form. Same pattern. Same outcome. The key truth. Just because something feels stronger doesn't mean it is. And just because you break free again doesn't mean you are free. Career example. What happens? You resisted once, then a stronger offer comes. Higher salary, bigger title, more benefits. It feels more convincing. But in reality, the environment hasn't changed. The pressure is still there. The misalignment remains. And when tested, you realize it still doesn't hold you. Relationship example. What happens? You've been through the cycle before. Then they come back stronger. More effort. More attention. More promises. It feels more real. But in reality, the core issue is still there. The pattern hasn't changed. And when tested, it still breaks. Religion example. What happens? You question something deeply. Then you get a more detailed answer. More structured explanation. More convincing language. More complexity. It feels stronger. But in reality, the core limitation is still there. The deeper truth is still not addressed. And when examined, it still doesn't fully hold. Sometimes you don't need more evidence. You've already seen enough to know it's the same pattern. Breaking free again does not mean the cycle is over. If you are still standing in the same place where it began. Verse 13. And Delilah said unto Samson, Hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. Hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. The pressure continues. Now it becomes persistent emotional pressure. Repeated accusation. Repeated guilt. Repeated demand. This wears down resistance over time. Tell me, still asking. This shows persistence wins when boundaries are not enforced. If you remain in this situation, the pressure does not stop. If thou weavest, this is new. Weaving equals integration or entanglement. This is deeper than before. Not just binding externally, but intertwining internally. The 7 locks of my head. This is critical. Hair represents identity, strength, and connection to source. Now he is getting close to the truth. This is no longer random or surface level. This is near the real source of his strength. With the verb equals system or structure or entanglement. This means integrating his strength into the system. Instead of being separate and being free, his strength becomes woven into what is trying to control him. What's really happening? This is the most dangerous stage so far. Samson is no longer deflecting completely. He is revealing partial truths. And that is more dangerous than lying. Key truth. Partial truth in the wrong environment can still be used against you. Career example, what happens? You are still in a misaligned environment. Then you begin to share your ideas, show your strengths, invest more deeply. You start giving your real value. The danger. Your strengths become tied to the system. Your identity becomes connected to the role. It becomes harder to live. You are now woven into it. Relationship example, what happens? You stay in the relationship. Then you begin to open up more. You begin to share deeper parts of yourself. You become more vulnerable. You give your true self. The danger. Your emotions become entangled. Your identity becomes tied to the relationship. Living becomes harder. You are now woven into it. Religion example, what happens? You stay within the belief system. Then you begin to identify deeply with it. You build your identity around it. You defend it strongly. It becomes who you are. The danger. Your identity is now tied to the system. Questioning feels like losing yourself. Living feels like losing identity. You are now woven into it. The most dangerous moment is not when you are attacked. It is when you begin to give parts of yourself to something that does not align with you. The more of yourself you weave into something that does not align, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before it. Verse 14, and she fastened it with the pin and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awaked out of his sleep and went away with the pin of the beam and with the web. She fastened it with the pin. Fasten equals secured or fixed in place. Pin equals small but critical point of hold. This represents subtle but firm attachment. Not obvious, not overwhelming, but enough to hold things together. The Philistines be upon thee. Same trigger again. Pressure is repeated. This shows the cycle is ongoing. Same test, same environment, same pattern. He awaked out of his sleep. Sleep equals unawareness. This is important. He wakes up, meaning awareness returns. Went away with the pin and the web. He breaks free again. But notice, he doesn't just break the restraint. He removes the pin and the word. This shows his strength is still intact. What's really happening? Even now, Samson is not weak. He is still fully capable of breaking free. But here's the danger. He is still there. He escapes but does not exit. He wakes up but does not walk away. The key truth: awareness without action keeps you in cycles. Career example: what happens? You experience pressure again. You wake up, meaning you see clearly. You realize the pattern. You recognize the misalignment. You even prove this doesn't control me. But then you stay. Same job, same system, same environment. The cycle continues. Relationship example: what happens? You go through another cycle. You wake up, meaning you see the pattern. You recognize the manipulation. You understand the dynamic. You break free emotionally, but then you remain in the relationship and the cycle repeats. Religion example: what happens? You question again. You wake up, meaning you see deeper. You recognize limitations. You understand more. You break through mentally, but then you stay in the same structure and the cycle continues. Waking up is not the same as walking away. You can wake up again and again and still remain in the same place if you never choose to walk away. Verse 15. And she said unto him, How canst thou say, I love thee, when thy heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy great strength lieth. How canst thou say, I love thee? Now, it becomes emotional manipulation at its peak. Love is used as a weapon. This creates emotional pressure, internal conflict, and a need to prove yourself. It shifts from truth to validation. When thy heart is not with me, your boundary is now interpreted as lack of love. This is powerful. You are made to feel like you are withholding. You are wrong. You are not fully committed, even though you are protecting yourself. Thou hast mocked me these 3 times. Repetition is emphasized. This shows persistent pressure over time. Not one attempt, not 2, but continuous. This wears down resistance. Has not told me wherein thy great strength lieth. The goal has not changed. It is still reveal your source of strength, so it can be taken from you. The deep insight. This is the turning point. Samson has seen the pattern, broken free multiple times, recognized the pressure, but now emotional persistence is breaking him down. The key truth: it is not always one moment that causes collapse. It is continuous pressure without separation. Career example: what happens? You want to leave or stand firm. Then pressure comes. If you were committed, you will stay. We need you. Why are you pulling back now? Now it's not about the job. It's about proving loyalty. The result, you begin to think, maybe I should show commitment. Maybe I should stay longer, even though you already know the truth. Relationship example, what happens? You try to hold your boundary. Then they say, if you loved me, you wouldn't do this. Why are you pulling away? You're hurting me. Now it becomes prove your love. The result, you begin to feel guilty, conflicted, and pressured to give in, and you start lowering your guard. Religion example, what happens? You question or step back. Then the system responds, if you truly believed, why are you doubting now? Your heart is not fully in this. Now it becomes prove your faith. The result, you begin to feel fear, guilt, and pressure to conform, even though your awareness is growing. The moment you feel like you have to prove what should already be understood, it's often the moment you are being pulled away from yourself. The most powerful pressure is not force. It is the kind that makes you feel like you must give up yourself to prove your love, loyalty, or faith. Verse 16. And it came to pass, when she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him so that his soul was vexed unto death. Pressed him daily. This is not one moment. It is constant pressure, repeated conversations, repeated emotional triggers, repeated attempts, day after day. With her words, words become the tool, not force, not action, but words. Guilt, persuasion, repetition, and emotional appeal. This shows how powerful language is. And urged him. Urge equals pushed, insisted, or pressed further. This is escalation. It does not stop. It intensifies. His soul was vexed. Soul equals emotional and inner state. Vexed equals distressed, troubled, and exhausted. This means internal exhaustion, mentally tired, emotionally drained, and spiritually worn. Unto death. It represents the breaking of resistance, the point where you can't keep resisting, where you feel overwhelmed, and where you feel drained, and you give in. The deep insight. This is the moment, not where strength is lost instantly, but where it is worn down over time. The key truth. Most people don't fall because they are weak. They fall because they are exhausted. Career example, what happens? You've been resisting pressure, misalignment, and expectations. Over time, there are constant demands, constant conversations, constant stress, and you become drained. The result, you begin to say, let me just do it. I'm tired of fighting this. Not because it's right, but because you are exhausted. Relationship example, what happens? You've been holding your boundary. Then comes daily conversations, repeated apologies, emotional pressure, and guilt. Over time, you become tired. The result, you begin to say, Let me just try again. I don't have the energy for this anymore. Not because it changed, but because you are worn down. Religion example, what happens? You've been questioning and thinking. Then comes repeated warnings, repeated fear-based messages, and repeated discouragement. Over time, you become mentally and emotionally tired. The result, you begin to say, let me just stop questioning. It's easier to stay. Not because it's true, but because you are exhausted. Sometimes, it's not the situation that breaks you. It's the repetition of having to stand against it again and again and again. The greatest danger is not always what overpowers you. It is what stays long enough to wear you down until you no longer have the strength to say no. Verse 17. Verse 17. That he told her all his heart, and said unto her, there had not come a razor upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. He told her all his heart. This is the breaking point. Not partial truth anymore, full exposure. No more guarding, no more deflection, no more resistance. He gives everything. There had not come a razor upon my head. Razor equals removal or cutting away. Head or hair represents identity, strength, connection to source. This reveals his strength is tied to his identity and alignment. I have been a Nazarite unto God. Nazarite equals set apart, consecrated, or aligned. Unto God means aligned with truth or higher awareness. This means his strength comes from remaining aligned and set apart. From my mother's womb, meaning from the beginning. This is not something he developed later. It is his original state, his true nature, his core identity. If I be shaven, meaning if that identity is removed, if that alignment is cut off, then strength is lost. My strength will go from me. This is key. The strength does not get taken, it leaves. Meaning it is not external loss, it is internal disconnection. I will be like any other man. This is loss of distinction, loss of identity, and loss of alignment. This is becoming common, disconnected, and unanchored. What's really happening? This is not just about revealing information. It is about giving away the very thing that makes you strong. The key truth: your greatest strength is not external. It is your alignment with who you truly are. And when that is compromised, everything changes. Career example. What happens? You've been resisting misalignment. Then you give in. You compromise your values. You accept what you once resisted. You stop standing firm. Not because it's right, but because you are exhausted. The result, you lose clarity. You feel disconnected. You no longer feel like yourself. Your strength begins to leave. Relationship example, what happens? You've been holding your boundaries. Then you give in. You lower your standards. You accept what you once rejected. You silence your truth to keep the connection. The result, you feel drained. You feel disconnected. You don't recognize yourself fully. You've given away your center. Religion example, what happens? You've been questioning and exploring. Then you give in. You stop questioning. You conform. You silence your awareness to stay within the system. The result, you feel restricted. You feel less connected. You lose your sense of inner clarity. Your strength begins to fade. Your strength was never in what you had. It was in who you were aligned with from the beginning. The moment you give away what makes you you is the moment you don't need to be overpowered because you have already let go of your strength. This is one of the most powerful verses in the entire chapter. It reveals that true strength is identity and alignment. Verse 18. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up this once, for he has showed me all his heart." Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hand. When Delilah saw, now it is confirmed, not assumed, not guessed, seen. Meaning, your vulnerability is now clear and exposed. He had told her all his heart, full access, nothing hidden anymore. This is important. What was once protected is now fully available. She sent and called immediate action. This shows the moment vulnerability is revealed, something responds to it. This is no longer passive, it is now activated. The lords of the Philistines, the higher forces return. This represents strong patterns, deep influences, systems that now have access. Why? Because now they know how to reach you. Come up this once. This is final. Not another test. Not another attempt. This is execution. He has showed me all his heart. Confirmation again. The strategy now has all the information needed. Nothing else needs to be figured out. They brought money in their hand. This is reward. It represents the exchange. What was given? Your truth, your strength, your identity. What is received? Temporary gain, comfort, or benefit. The deep insight. This is the moment where what you revealed becomes the key used against you. Once something has access to your core, it no longer needs to guess. It knows exactly how to affect you. Career example, what happens? You've now fully given in. The system responds. You are placed deeper into it. Expectations increase. Pressure becomes normalized. Why? Because now they know you will comply. The result, your boundaries weaken. Your identity becomes tied to the system. It becomes harder to step away. Relationship example, what happens? You fully opened up. Now they know what affects you, what triggers you, what makes you stay, and they begin to use it. The result, you feel more controlled, more dependent, and feel less free. Religion example, what happens? You fully submit to the system. Now it knows your fears, your needs, and your identity, and it reinforces what keeps you within it. The result, you rely on it for direction. You feel unable to step outside. Your growth becomes limited. The moment you reveal everything to something that does not align with you is the moment it no longer needs to figure you out. You don't need to be chased. When something already knows exactly where to find you and exactly how to reach you. This verse is very powerful. It shows that one's vulnerability is fully revealed in the wrong environment. Control becomes precise and intentional. Verse 19. And she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. She made him sleep upon her knees. Sleep equals unawareness. Knees represents place of submission or dependence. He is now completely relaxed and unguarded. No resistance, no awareness, no alertness. This is full surrender to the situation. She called for a man. External action is now taken. This represents execution of what was planned, what was studied, what was prepared, and what was waiting. Now it becomes real. Shave off the 7 locks of his head. This is the core. 7 represents completeness. Locks of hair represents identity, strength, connection to source. This means complete removal of alignment. Not partial, total. She began to afflict him. Now the effect begins. Afflict equals weaken, or trouble, or oppress. This is important. The suffering begins after the loss of alignment. His strength went from him. This is the result. Not taken by force, it left. Meaning, strength is not something external. It is something sustained by alignment. The deep insight. This is the final stage. Exposure to access, to execution, to loss. Samson is not overpowered. He is disconnected from his source. The key truth. You don't lose your strength when something attacks you. You lose it when you disconnect from what sustains you. Career example. You've fully given in. Now you no longer resist. You no longer question. You go along with everything. Your values are no longer leading you. The result, you feel drained. You feel disconnected. You feel unlike yourself. Your strength has left. Relationship example. You've given everything. Now you silence your needs. You ignore your boundaries. You adapt to keep the connection. You are no longer grounded in yourself. The result: emotional exhaustion, loss of identity, and dependence. You don't feel like yourself anymore. Religion example. What happens? You fully conformed. Now you stop questioning. You follow without awareness. You depend entirely on external direction. Your inner voice is silent. The result: loss of clarity, loss of inner connection, dependence on external authority. Your strength has left. The moment you become completely unguarded in something that does not align with you is the moment you don't need to be forced, because you have already let go. You are not at your weakest when something attacks you. You are at your weakest when you no longer recognize that you need to guard what makes you strong. Verse 20. And she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before and shake myself. And he wished not that the Lord was departed from him. The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. Same trigger as before. Same situation. Same pressure. Nothing new externally. He awoke out of his sleep. He wakes up physically, but not fully aware internally. This is powerful. You can be awake and still not conscious of your condition. I will go out as at other times before. This is assumption. He believes nothing has changed. Same strength, same ability, same outcome. He relies on past experience. And shake myself. This represents trying to activate strength, doing what used to work, expecting the same result. He wished not means he did not know. This is the most powerful part. Lack of awareness, no realization of change, that the Lord was departed from him. Lord represents governing principle or alignment or source. This means he is disconnected from his source and doesn't realize it. What's really happening? This is the most dangerous stage. Not when strength is lost, but when you don't realize it's gone. The key truth: the greatest loss is not losing your strength. It is losing it without awareness. Career example, what happens? You've compromised your values over time, but you still think, I'm still the same. I've got this. Nothing has changed. You rely on your past confidence. The reality: you feel less fulfilled. You feel less clear. Your decisions are different, but you haven't fully realized it. Relationship examples, what happens? You've slowly lowered your boundaries, but you still think, I'm still strong. I know who I am. You act like before. The reality: you tolerate more. You feel more drained. You are less grounded, but you don't fully see it yet. Religion example, what happens? You stop questioning and exploring, but you still think, I'm aligned. I'm growing. You continue in the same way. The reality: your awareness is limited. Your growth has slowed. Your connection feels weaker, but you don't recognize it. The most dangerous place is not where you fall. It is where you think you are still standing the same way you were before. The moment you assume nothing has changed is often the moment you are furthest from who you once were. Verse 21. But the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. The Philistines took him. Now there is no resistance. Before, he broke free. He resisted. He overcame. Now he is taken. This represents loss of control. Put out his eyes. Eyes represent perception, vision, awareness. This is powerful. The loss of inner sight, loss of discernment, loss of clarity, loss of ability to see truth. This is mental and spiritual blindness. Brought him down to Gaza. Gaza equals place of vulnerability, the same place where it started. This shows return to the place of misalignment, but now in a lower state. Bound him with fetters of brass. Fetters equals strong chains. Brass equals hardness or rigidity. This represents deep, heavy restriction. Unlike before, green wheat which were weak, ropes which were stronger, now full bondage. He did grind in the prison house. Grinding equals repetitive labor. Prison equals limitation or confinement. This is powerful. This is living in cycles, repetition, no growth, no movement forward, just survival. What's really happening? This is the external result of everything that happened within. First, misalignment, attachment, exposure, disconnection, now consequence. Key truth: what you lose internally eventually becomes visible externally. Career example: what happens? You fully compromise your values. Now you feel stuck. You feel limited. You feel like you can't leave. Your clarity, eyes, is gone. Result: you repeat the same routine. You feel drained. You feel trapped. You are functioning, but not fulfilled. Relationship example: you fully given in. Now you lose clarity. You don't trust your judgment. You feel dependent. You don't see things clearly anymore. Your eyes are gone. The result: you stay in the cycle. You repeat patterns. You feel stuck. You are present but not free. Religion example: what happens? You fully suppress your awareness. Now you stop questioning. You rely entirely on external direction. You lose your inner voice. Your perception is limited. The result: repetition of beliefs. No deeper growth. Dependence. You are active but not expanding. You don't end up in cycles by accident. You end up there after slowly losing the awareness that once guided you out. The moment you lose sight of what is true within you is the moment you can be led anywhere without realizing you've already lost your way. Verse 22. Howbeit, the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven. Howbeit, this is a turning point word. It means nevertheless, despite everything that happened, Despite the fall, despite the loss, despite the mistakes, something is still possible. The hair of his head began to grow again. Hair equals identity, strength, connection to source. This is powerful. What was lost begins to return. Not instantly, but gradually. This represents reconnection, restoration, and renewal. After he was shaven, after complete loss, this is key. Restoration does not happen before the fall or the resistance. It begins after full awareness of loss. What's really happening? This verse reveals something powerful. Your strength was never permanently gone. It was disconnected, and now it begins to reconnect. The key truth: no matter how far you've gone, you can return. Not instantly, but gradually. Career example: what happens? You've been stuck in misalignment. Then something shifts. You start thinking differently. You begin to reflect. You start planning change. It's small at first, but it's real. The result: you begin to feel clarity again. You start moving toward alignment. You regain your sense of purpose. Your hair is growing back. Relationship example: what happens? You've lost yourself in a relationship. Then something shifts. You begin to see clearly again. You reconnect with yourself. You remember your worth. It starts small, but it grows. The result: you regain your identity. You feel stronger. You begin to detach. You are returning to yourself. Your hair is growing again. Religion example: what happens? You've suppressed your awareness. Then something shifts. You begin questioning again. You feel curiosity. You seek deeper understanding. It may feel quiet, but it's powerful. The result: your awareness expands. Your connection returns. You begin to grow again. Your inner clarity is coming back. Your hair is growing again. Even after everything, you are not finished. Even after the loss, something within you still remembers who you are. You may have lost your strength for a moment, but what is truly yours will always find a way to grow back. This verse is beautiful and powerful. It shows that no matter the fall, restoration is always possible. Verse 23. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon their god, and to rejoice. For they said, our God had delivered Samson our enemy into our hand. The lords of the Philistines gathered. The system comes together. This represents reinforcement, collective agreement, confirmation of what they believe has happened. They are unified in one belief: we have won. To offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon their god. Dagon represents false foundation, false belief, external dependence, This is powerful. They are celebrating a false sense of victory, giving credit to what is not truly the source. And to rejoice. This is joy based on assumption, premature celebration. They believe the situation is finished. Our God had delivered Samson. This is misinterpretation. They think their system, their way, their power is what caused the outcome. But in reality, Samson's fall came from internal disconnection. Into our hand, they believe they now have full control. No resistance, no threat, no comeback. The deep insight. This is the illusion. The system believes the story is over. But what they don't see is restoration has already begun. The key truth. Just because something looks defeated externally does not mean it is finished internally. Relationship example, what happens? After everything, the cycles, the pressure, the emotional exhaustion, something shifts within you again. Your awareness returns. But this time, you move differently. Before, you spoke, you explained, you tried to fix things, you announced your intentions, and it was used against you. Now you become intentional. You don't say, I'm leaving. This isn't working. I'm done. Instead, you observe, you plan, and you prepare. Why this happens? Because now you understand what you say can be used to influence you. Your emotions can be targeted. Your intentions can be disrupted, so you protect your next move. What you begin to do, you detach internally. You regain emotional independence. You create a plan. You move quietly, not out of fear, but out of clarity and wisdom. Important balance. This is not about deception or playing games. It is about protecting your transition. Connection to the verse. While they are celebrating, they won't leave. They are not going anywhere. You already know that is not true, but you don't announce it. The deep truth. Not every awakening needs to be announced. Some awakenings must be protected. Growth does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it becomes quiet, not because it is weak, but because it is preparing to move. Career example, what happens? After everything, the pressure, the misalignment, the compromise, your awareness returns. But this time, you don't announce it. Before, you complained, you spoke up, you hinted at leaving, and the system responded with office, with pressure, with guilt. Now you move differently. You don't say, I'm looking for another job. You don't say, I'm planning to leave. Instead, you update your resume quietly. You apply for roles silently. You build new opportunities. You prepare your exit. While externally, everything looks the same. Why this matters? Because now you understand. The system adapts when it senses you leaving. It offers incentives to keep you. It applies pressure to delay your move so you protect your transition. What's really happening? You detach internally. You regain clarity. You move with intention, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Religion example, what happens? After everything, the questioning, the suppression, the limitation, your awareness returns. But this time, you don't argue. Before, you debated, you tried to explain, you challenged openly, and it led to resistance, pushback, and pressure. Now, you move differently. You don't say, I don't believe this anymore. You don't say, this doesn't make sense to me. Instead, you explore quietly, you study deeply, you expand your understanding privately, while externally you remain neutral. Why this matters? Because now you understand. Some systems resist change. They react to visible questioning. They try to pull you back so you protect your growth. What's really happening? You reconnect inwardly. You rebuild your understanding. You expand at your own pace, not in rebellion, but in alignment. Not every transformation needs an audience. Some of the most powerful shifts happen in silence before they ever appear in your life. The strongest transitions are not always loud. Sometimes they are built quietly until the moment everything changes all at once. Verse 24. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God had delivered into our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country which slew many of us. When the people saw him, it becomes visible. What happened internally now appears externally. Others observe your current state. They praise their God. They give credit to the wrong source. This represents misinterpretation. They believe their system worked. Their way is superior. Their method is correct. But they don't see the internal process that led there. Our God had delivered. They assume victory is permanent. This is important. They don't realize restoration has already begun. Our enemy, they label him. This represents identity assignment. You are now seen as defeated, limited, and no longer a threat. The destroyer of our country, they define your past. This shows they remember who you used to be and what you were capable of, but they believe that version of you is gone, which slew many of us. This is acknowledgement of past strength. They know you were powerful before, but now they think it's over. The deep insight. This is collective illusion. Not just one voice, but many voices, all agreeing you are finished. The key truth. Just because many people believe something about you does not make it true. Career example, what happens? From the outside, you are still in the same role. You've adapted. You are no longer resisting. Others assume they are comfortable now. They are not going anywhere. They've accepted it. They believe this is your final state. But internally, you are planning. You are rebuilding. You are preparing to move. They don't see what's happening within you. Relationship example, what happens? From the outside, you are quiet. You are compliant. You are no longer resisting. Others assume they've accepted this. They are not leaving, they've changed. They believe you are no longer a threat to the dynamic, but internally, you are detaching. You are regaining clarity. You are preparing your exit. They don't see your restoration. Religion example, what happens? From the outside, you appear consistent. You are not questioning openly. You seem aligned. Others assume they are grounded here. They've accepted everything. They are no longer exploring. They believe your journey has stopped. But internally, you are expanding. You are reconnecting. You are growing. They don't see your inner awakening. The world will often define you based on what it sees, not knowing that what it sees is not the full story. They may believe it's over for you because of what they see, but what they cannot see is often what changes everything. Verse 25. And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may make us sport. And they called for Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport. And they set him between the pillars. When their hearts were merry, they are relaxed. This represents false security, no awareness of danger, no expectation of change, complete comfort in the situation. They believe everything is under control. Call for Samson. Now he is summoned. This shows he is no longer seen as a threat. Instead, he is used that he may make us sport. Sport equals entertainment or mockery. He is now reduced from strength to amusement. What was once respected is now mocked. This represents loss of perceived value. They called him out of the prison house. He is brought out, but not for freedom, for display. This is important. He is still bound, but now visible. He made them sport. He participates. This is key. Functioning within limitation, going through motions, playing a role, operating below true capacity. Set him between the pillars. Pillars equals foundational supports. This is powerful. He is placed at the foundation of the system. Not knowing yet, this is where everything will change. What's really happening? This is the stage of underestimation. The system believes he is finished. He is powerless. He is no longer a threat, so it becomes careless. The key truth: when something believes you are no longer a threat, it stops guarding against you. Career example, what happens? From the outside, you are still working. You are compliant. You are doing your task. Others think they are settled now. They are not going anywhere. They relax. But internally, you are preparing your next move. You are building something new. You are ready to transition. They don't see what's coming. Relationship example, what happens? From the outside, you are quiet. You are no longer arguing. You are going along. They think they've accepted this. They are not leaving. They become comfortable. But internally, you've detached. You've made your decision. You are preparing to leave. They don't see the shift. Religion example, what happens? From the outside, you are consistent. You are not questioning openly. You appear aligned. The system thinks they are fully grounded here. They are not exploring anymore. It relaxes. But internally, you are expanding. You are reconnecting. You are growing. They don't see what's changing within you. Sometimes, you are placed exactly where you need to be. Not because you are weak, but because the moment is not yet revealed. The moment they believe you are no longer a threat is often the moment everything begins to turn. This verse is very powerful. It shows how underestimation creates the setup for transformation. Verse 26. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, Suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. Samson said, he speaks again. This is important. Awareness is now active, not silent anymore, not passive. He is now intentional. Unto the lad that held him by the hand. Lad represents lesser awareness or guiding influence. Held by the hand equals being led externally. This represents a state where you are still not fully in control, but you are aware enough to direct movement. Even in limitation, you still have choice. Suffer me, allow me. This is permission. He is no longer reacting. He is requesting and directing. This is the return of agency. That I may feel. Feel equals sense. Reconnect. Become aware. This is key. He is not seeing. His eyes are gone. He is reconnecting through awareness, a different kind of knowing. The pillars were upon the house standard. Pillars equals foundation or support system. House equals structure, system, or environment. This is powerful. He is locating the foundation of the system, not the surface, the root, that I may lean upon them. Lean equals position. Prepare, apply pressure. This is not weakness. This is strategic positioning. He is prepared for a decisive moment. The deep insight. This is the shift from passive restoration to intentional action. The key truth. True change does not begin when you escape. It begins when you understand what needs to be addressed at the root. Career example, what happens? You've regained awareness. Now you begin to understand the system deeply. Identify what truly holds it together. Position yourself strategically, not reacting, but preparing. The result, you move with clarity. You make intentional decisions. You prepare for a decisive shift. You are no longer lost. You are positioned. Relationship example. What happens? You've regained yourself internally. Now you begin to observe clearly. Understand the dynamic. Position yourself emotionally. You are no longer reacting. You are intentional. The result, you detach. You prepare your exit. You regain full control. You are no longer overwhelmed. You are aware and ready. Religion example, what happens? Your awareness has returned. Now you begin to seek deeper truth, identify foundational beliefs, and examine what holds the system together. Not rejecting blindly, but understanding deeply. The result, you grow with clarity, you move with intention, you reconnect with truth. You are no longer confined, you are rebuilding from the root. Even in limitation, you are not without power. Because the moment you become aware again, you begin to move, not randomly, but with purpose. The shift. Instead of asking, how do I escape this? Ask, what is the foundation of this? And where must I position myself to truly change it? Because transformation happens at the root. The moment you stop reacting and start positioning is the moment everything begins to shift. Not on the surface, but at the very place where it all stands. Verse 27. Now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there. And there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. The house was full. The system is complete. This represents total saturation. No gaps. No missing pieces. Everything is in place. This is the full structure. Your beliefs, patterns, and influences all active. Men and women. It represents masculine plus feminine, logic plus emotion. This shows every aspect of your inner world is involved. Your thoughts, feelings, reactions, and patterns, nothing is untouched. All the laws of the Philistines were there. The highest influences are present. This represents deep-rooted structures. These are core beliefs, strong patterns, and dominant influences. This is the entire system at its peak. Upon the roof. Roof equals elevated level or surface visibility. This represents conscious awareness level. Meaning, even at the level of awareness, these patterns are present. 3,000 men and women. These are not literal men and women. Large number equals magnitude. This shows intensity and skill. The system is not small. It is overwhelming in appearance. That beheld while Samson made sport. They are watching, observing. This represents external perception. They believe that Samson is finished, powerless, and reduced. And this belief is now shared collectively. The deep insight. This is the moment before transformation. Everything is gathered, aligned, and at its peak. The system is fully confident, but also fully exposed. The key truth. Before true transformation happens, the pattern often reaches its highest expression. Career example, what happens? From the outside, you are fully integrated. The system is functioning smoothly. Everything appears stable. Others believe this is permanent. Nothing will change. The system is confident. But internally, you see everything clearly. You understand the structure. You are positioned. They don't realize you are no longer unaware. Relationship example, what happens? From the outside, the dynamic is fully established. The pattern is consistent. Everything appears normal. Others believe this is how it will always be. Nothing is changing. The pattern is at its strongest. But internally, you see the full picture. You understand the dynamic. You are ready. They don't see what's about to shift. Religion example. From the outside, the structure is complete. The beliefs are reinforced. The system is strong. Others believe this is the truth. This will not change. The system is confident. But internally, you understand deeply. You see beyond the surface. You are reconnecting. They don't realize your awareness has shifted. This is peak before shift. Sometimes, everything has to come together, not to remain, but to be seen clearly for what it truly is. The moment everything looks like it is fully established is often the moment it is most ready to change. Verse 28. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me. I pray thee and strengthen me. I pray thee only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for mine two eyes. Samson called unto the Lord. He turns inward again. Lord equals governing principle or source or truth. This is powerful. This is reconnection, not to external validation, not to external systems, but to his source. Remember me. This is not memory in time. This is return to identity. Meaning, bring me back into alignment with who I truly am. Strengthen me. Strength is not external. It is restored through alignment. This is a request for inner reconnection and empowerment. Only this once. This is focus. Not scattered effort, but intentional and concentrated action, a decisive moment, that I may be avenged. Not revenge in the surface sense. It represents restoration of balance, correcting what was misaligned. For mine two eyes. Eyes equals perception or awareness. He recognizes what was lost and now acts from that awareness. The deep insight. This is the moment where awareness plus restoration plus intention become action. The key truth. True transformation begins when you reconnect with your source and act from that place. Relationship example. What happens? After everything, the cycles, the emotional exhaustion, after losing yourself, after trying, forgiving, and hoping again and again, you reach a moment where you realize, I can't do this on my own anymore. And something shifts. You begin to pray again. You seek God again. You turn inward again. Even if you haven't in a long time, not because someone told you to, but because you need strength. Your prayer becomes real, not routine, not memorized, but raw and honest. You say, oh God, help me out of this. Give me strength to live. I can't keep doing this. This is true surrender. You even make promises. If you get me out of here, I won't go back again. I will do better. Just help me get out of this. Not from perfection, but from desperation mixed with clarity. What's really happening? This is not weakness. This is reconnection. You've tried everything externally. Now you are turning inward, back to your source. Connection to the verse, Samson called unto the Lord. After the fall, after the loss, after the exhaustion, he didn't pretend to be strong anymore. He returned. The deep truth. Sometimes you don't truly seek God until you realize nothing else can carry you out. There is a kind of prayer that only comes after you've tried everything and realize you were never meant to do it alone. The moment you fall to your knees and ask for strength, it's not the moment you are weakest. It is the moment you are finally returning to your source. Career example, what happens? After everything, the stress, the compromise, the burnout, the feeling stuck and drained, you reach a point where you realize, I can't keep living like this. And something shifts. You begin to pray again. You reflect deeply. You seek direction, not because it's routine, but because you need clarity and strength. Your prayer becomes real. You say, oh God, I need a way out. Show me what to do. Give me the courage to make this move. This is not about wanting more money or status. It is about wanting alignment. You even make promises. I won't ignore my values again. I won't stay where I feel this way. Just guide me out of this. Not from perfection, but from clarity born out of exhaustion. What's really happening? This is not failure. This is realignment. You've tried to figure it out alone. Now you are reconnecting to your inner direction, back to what truly guides you. Religion example. After everything, the confusion, the pressure, and the suppression of your questions, you reach a point where you realize, I need to understand this for myself. And something shifts. You begin to pray differently. You seek truth sincerely. You turn inward for understanding, not to follow blindly, but to know deeply. Your prayer becomes real. You say, oh God, reveal truth to me. Help me understand beyond what I've been told. Guide me into clarity. This is no longer about accepting what others say. It is about experiencing truth yourself. You even make promises. I won't ignore what I feel within. I won't silence my understanding. Just guide me into truth. Not from rebellion, but from a desire for real connection. What's really happening? This is not doubt. This is awakening. You've depended on external explanations. Now you are reconnecting inwardly, back to your direct connection to truth. There is a moment in your life where effort runs out and striving fades, and all that is left is a quiet, honest return back to the one who was always there. The moment you stop trying to carry everything alone And finally, ask for help. It's not the moment you failed. It is the moment you remembered where your strength truly comes from. Verse 29. And Samson took hold of the two middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand, and of the other with his left. Samson took hold. He acts. Not thinking anymore. Not just praying anymore. Action. This is powerful. Alignment has now become movement. Of the two middle pillars. Pillars equals foundation or support system. Middle pillars equals core structures. This represents what is holding everything together. Core beliefs, core patterns, and core attachments. He doesn't go for surface issues or small adjustments. He goes straight to the root upon which the house stood. House represents system or structure or environment. This confirms everything rests on these foundations. If they move, everything moves. On which it was borne up. Borne up equals supported or sustained. This is key. The system only exists because of what supports it. Remove the support, and the system cannot stand. Right hand and left hand. Right equals action or execution. Left equals awareness or intuition. This represents full alignment. Mind plus action. Awareness plus movement. Intention plus execution. He is now fully integrated. The deep insight. This is the moment where you stop managing the situation and begin to address the root. The key truth. Real transformation does not happen when you adjust the surface. It happens when you take hold of what is holding everything in place. Career example. You've prayed, reflected, and gained clarity. Now you act. You stop tolerating misalignment. You make a decisive move. You change your direction. Not small adjustment, but core change. The result, you break out of the cycle. You reclaim your path. You move into alignment. You address the foundation. Relationship example. You've reached your breaking point and prayed. Now you act. You enforce your boundary. You choose yourself. You stop the cycle. Not another conversation. Not another attempt, but a clear decision. The result, the dynamic shifts completely. The pattern cannot continue. You reclaim your identity. You addressed the root. Religion example, what happens? You've reconnected inwardly. Now you act. You examine foundational beliefs. You release what doesn't align. You rebuild from truth. Not surface level understanding, but deep transformation. The result, you grow with clarity. You reconnect with truth. You move beyond limitation. You address the foundation. You don't need to fight everything. You only need to understand what is holding everything together and meet it with full alignment. The moment you stop trying to manage the surface and take hold of what is beneath it, is the moment everything begins to change. Verse 30. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bowed himself with all his might. And the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Let me die. This represents the death of the old self, old patterns, old attachments, old identity, the part of you that was connected to the misalignment. With the Philistines, this is powerful. He doesn't separate himself from the system. He allows everything tied to that old state to end together. Meaning, you don't try to preserve parts of what broke you. He bowed himself with all his might. This is full surrender. Not halfway, not partial, everything. This represents complete commitment to transformation. The house fell. The system collapses. This is the result of addressing the foundation. What was too strong can no longer remain. Upon the lords and all the people, everything tied to it falls. This is key. Not just one part, the entire structure. Your beliefs, patterns, attachments, influences, all of it. More than in his life. This is powerful. The transformation here is greater than all previous efforts. Why? Because before he fought externally, now he addressed the root. This is not distraction. It is transformation through release. You don't truly change your life until you are willing to let go of the version of yourself that kept you in the cycle. Career example, what happens? You've reached full clarity. Now you act fully. You leave the environment. You release the identity tied to it. You stop holding on to what no longer aligns, not partially, completely. Result, the cycle ends. You create a new path. You step into alignment. This is full release. Relationship example, what happens? You've prayed, reflected, and gained clarity. Now you act fully. You live. You let go emotionally. You stop revisiting the past, not checking back, not hoping it changes, but closing the chapter. The result, the pattern ends. Your identity is restored. You move forward freely. This is true freedom. Religion example, what happens? You've reconnected with truth. Now you act fully. You release limiting beliefs. You let go of what doesn't align. You rebuild from truth, not halfway, but fully. The result, your awareness expands. Your connection deepens. You grow beyond limitation. This is complete transformation. Sometimes, freedom does not come from holding on, but from finally letting go of everything that kept you from yourself. The most powerful moment is not when you fight harder. It is when you finally say, I am done with this version of my life, and mean it with everything in you. This is the climax of the entire story. It shows that true transformation requires full release, not partial change. And so we see, this was never about a man losing his strength. It was about what happens when we lose our alignment and forget who we are. But even in the fall, even in the silence, even in the moment where it feels like everything is lost, something within you is still alive, waiting to return. Because your strength was never in what you held on to. It was always in what you were connected to. And the moment you turn inward again, the moment you reconnect, the moment you choose truth over comfort, everything begins to change. Not on the surface, but at the root. So if you found yourself in a cycle, if you felt stuck, if you've ever asked yourself, how did I get here? Know this: you are not finished. You are simply at the point where awareness has returned and transformation is now a choice. So choose wisely, choose truth, choose yourself, and most importantly, return to the source within you. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next teaching. Enjoy the rest of your day.